If people put money in crypto, it's a massive headache because it's self-custodial. So this means that I have to have the private key of my wallet, but I need to put it somewhere that no one can steal it, touch it, find it, read it.
Find it. People are finding it.
Because
There's theft.
It's Bitcoin theft.
you can't write it on a piece of paper.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, 'cause
like money, money theft.
if I have your private key, I own your Bitcoin effectively because Bitcoin is owned by the person who owns the wallet. And because there's no one that can say, oh, but you're not Amma, you can't own the Bitcoin. There's no central authority to do that, right? So
If they have your
private
key,
keys are compromised, your money is gone. And there's a lot of crypto people that have some cash in crypto, and then as like prices go up, now it's like one of those like lingering like voices in the back of the head. It's like, oh, like what happens if someone sees your private key? Like what's gonna happen? Because as a human, you want to keep things simple. You just want to put all of your cash in one wallet, put it aside, and it's done. But then you have a single private key. If you lose it, you lose all your funds.
And Sree, we're going to get into how you built a blockchain, how you got into blockchain. So we're super excited to dig further. So the first part of the podcast is going to be titled Your Early Life and Entrepreneurial Pursuits. Because I don't know if any of you have seen the Stephen Bartlett podcast, but we feel there's a lot to say about someone, about how they were as a child. So we just want to get to know you a bit more and see how that influenced your journey today. So yeah, Sree.
Fair enough. Well, firstly, again, I have to say, I really appreciate you for inviting me here. This is pretty nice. Pretty early on, I didn't do anything tech related until maybe 9th grade. Until then, I was more of a go outside and hang out with friends, play kind of guy. And but the very
Fair enough. As a child, that's cool. Yeah.
But the distinction with the games I play is I make them, and I kind of convince all the kids in my street to play them with me. And they always have to do about something to do with business. So we used to like pluck out leaves from trees and use those as cash and say, oh, you can buy this property. Or like we use I'm from the US, from Chicago suburbs. So everyone has their own driveway and the sidewalk is like a road. And so you could say, oh, you can buy and you could have a property here on this part of the sidewalk or your driveway. And you can use chalk to build a house there and draw it out. But all these games always ended up me being a landlord and collecting rent from everyone on the street. And those were the early days. But when I seriously started getting into entrepreneurship was in 9th grade when I just learned how to code for the first time. It was just JavaScript. I learned it in class.
You got in quite early. So in school, you were learning that stuff.
Yeah. But this was primarily for web development. They just taught us how to build websites. And one really crazy thing happened, which was I got a email from this platform called Code Academy, I believe. And it was basically about, hey, did you know you can build your own Chrome extension? And I was like, whoa, that's crazy. And so I started tinkering away with this Chrome extension. They gave like the basic template and I started expanding that. And I effectively made a productivity tool. And then I built it. It looked really nice. And it has like a background that changes every day. It has a motivational quote at the bottom. You get to put your name in. You can add, there's a to-do list. So you can add to-do items. So it's pretty nice. The settings you could change, and there's a contributor section where either one, someone can contribute to the open source code, or two, they pay me $10 and they can be added on. And so I had a bunch of students in my school just pay me $10 so they could be added onto this list.
Nice.
And then that was like the revenue stream there. And then I was like, I want really a lot of users. So I went up, and this is also the year when school districts in my area were giving students Chromebooks. And
I remember that time. Yeah.
And I was like, wait a second, if I'm building something on Chrome, everyone has Chromebooks, everything's blocked because it's school. I just went up to the IT department in my school and I said, hey, I built this thing, it's great. And like, this has been vetted by X, Y, and Z CS teachers. I would love for you to unblock this so students can use it. And it's just a productivity tool. And they said, we'll review it. And within a week, they reviewed it and approved it. So mine was the only Chrome extension that was allowed to be on these Chromebooks. And I had like 4,000 students using them. Because my school itself has 4,000 kids. But then we have a really big district. So there's 3 high schools, like around 4,000 students each. And each middle school maybe has about 2,000 kids. So a lot of students. And so I had 4,000 daily active users
Wow,
on my thing. But at that point, I didn't know what that actually meant. I just had, I was just like, oh yeah, cool, 4,000. That was like just amazing clout. I was just telling my friends, look, I built this. I walk down the street at or school and I just see people using my stuff on their Chromebooks. It's pretty neat. But that was just like, I didn't really think of that as business. It was more of I want to build something and I want to put it out for people to use. And that was like the main entry in. And then this is also around the same time when I think I watched some like the movie about the founder of McDonald's. It's literally called The Founder. And it was on Netflix.
Yeah. I've not seen it.
And I watched that. I was like, whoa, like I just love this. And then like that's around the same time when I knew I always wanted to build something. And my motto has been, I want to build something one day that everyone on the planet is using, or at least everyone on the planet is impacted by. And that's been the journey since. And I was working at a game development company, also in 9th grade, when there's basically a bunch of college students from UIUC who were building this game for improving inclusivity. So they had an African-American young girl as a main character, or they had an Indian girl in a wheelchair. And so they wanted to kind of show people that it's not just some white game main character, it could be other people too. And so I was just there on Unity building this thing for them. It was basically unpaid labor for the entire summer, but it was really nice. I was there at the library for 3 months, every single day from like 8 to whenever, every single day. And we're just building these games. I don't think it was ever launched, but I just did the work for 3 months and it was pretty fulfilling because every single day we would go in, we'd just think about, like what would be really cool to have in this game? And we just built it. And so that was pretty neat. But then that's essentially the beginning before core entrepreneurship started and before I started building my first proper business.
So yeah, amazing story. And I was just wondering, how did you know you could go and build things and charge for it as a child, especially?
Those two things actually weren't connected until I actually started building my own company properly. Like the whole thing with Chrome extension and trying to get people to pay $10 to be on there, it was just people said, hey, I'll pay you $10 to be on here. So I was like, okay, I'll take it. Yeah. So it was more like, if you want to give me money to be on, it's like, why not? But it was never like, I should actually go and charge people to be on here. Because if I thought about it now, I realized 4,000 monthly active users is pretty crazy. If I just kind of push this and went to other school districts and get them to approve it too. Because once you're in the system. Yeah. It's super simple. And mine is also one of the more prominent school districts in the state of Illinois. So it would have been pretty simple for me to expand out. But that thought I just didn't have. It was more of I want to build something because I just learned in class. Why not?
Why not?
And then later it was like, monetization is actually important for you to scale things up. But I didn't connect that until much later, like a couple years in.
I think that's a key lesson in entrepreneurship. Like, hopefully, they say this: if you build something good enough, people will come to you. But I don't know what you think that is good to.
That's true. Ask, That's true. Like it's super. There's very few. Like eBay is a perfect example where the guy was just thinking, okay, rather than me buying something new, why don't they just buy something that's used? Why can't people just buy what someone else wants to sell? And he created eBay, and I think he didn't even ask explicitly for like, I want this as money. At that point, PayPal didn't even exist when it first launched. So people were literally sending him cash in a little envelope. And like, as he started getting in like lots and lots of checks or like cash on a daily basis, that's when he realized, okay, this is a real business. But I'm a firm believer in if you're putting something out there that's super useful to people somehow people will realize that, maybe like I want to put money in this. Like that's the natural instinct. People know nothing is free. So they will, regardless of whether you ask them or not, just to pay. So I'm a firm believer of that.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know if Cait, if you had anything to add to that?
No, I just think 4,000 users is something that many founders would be very jealous of. Absolutely. That's great. That's really great.
Have you seen the jokes on LinkedIn where people comment on how many like daily active users they have? And it's usually like the first time founders is usually like 10 and it's like most of their family and friends. So at like year 9 or grade 9, having 4,000 users is mad.
Yeah, that is crazy.
Brilliant. So yeah, I just wanted to get into like, how did you then get into blockchain? Because it's I still don't fully understand it. So I really would love your explanation. Why blockchain?
Right. So I particularly started off actually looking at this when there was a guy in high school when I was in maybe 11th grade or 12th grade, when this guy was, you know how like high school kids, they just pretend like they're great at something. So this guy was pretending to be great at investing. And he would
Why do you
basically
think
tell
he was
the school-
pretending?
That's because he says he made $1 million off of trading
whoa.
stock options, which I just didn't believe.
Fair.
Like, why would he be in high school if he's going to make that much
Yeah,
money trading
yeah,
stock
yeah.
options? Just do that full time and like maybe start your own investment fund, and there we go. Like you'll be rich. And also like he never actually showed the portfolio. It was always words. So I just never believed him. But he did mention Bitcoin, and I was like, "What is Bitcoin?" And he's like, "Yeah, dude, like I mined Bitcoin and I bought a Rubik's Cube with it." And I was like, "Okay."
He bought
That's
a Rubik's Cube with
Yeah.
Bitcoin.
Yeah,
Right.
but like even many years before that also. I think this was 2016 is when I was in 9th grade. So this is probably around 2018, I think. Yeah. And 2018-ish. So like, but then he mined Bitcoin like much earlier. And he said he bought Rubik's Cube with it. And it was just a joke. And then I was looking into this, what is this? And this is around the same time when I used my mom's Robinhood account to buy one Doge. And I have a single Doge at $0.002. Right now it's 0.4, and it's like the percent, 40 cents basically. And so like it's like a 4,000% increase or something. And it's like crazy. But I just bought one, and I was like, I just want to see what this is. And I was just like involved in trading early on, but I was never an aggressive trader. I was like, what is this? And I bought it, and that was it. I forgot about it. That was my introduction into it. But the whole concept of blockchain, I've started getting into very seriously, like programming wise, a year ago. And the simplest way to think about it is it's a database that no single entity owns, can run. And that's like the very simple way to think about it. Everyone can use this database that's on the internet. And it has a bunch of additional properties which make it really cool. One is the database doesn't have standard data records where it's not like someone's name, date, age. It's mainly database for exchanging value. So money is the simplest thing to think about. So people trade money, and that's what Bitcoin was supposed to be. And it still is, but there's people trying to build smart contracts on it, which I don't believe. But anyway, there's that's the core underlying concept. But you can put other sorts of value, and that's what we're trying to do: tokenize assets and put things on the chain, because real assets have value. Forestry has value. Carbon credits have value, so you put them on chain. You can put different things on chain. It could be anything. Another thing is putting things on this decentralized database. The core benefit of that is you can create tokens out of them. You can create decentralized exchanges where there's high liquidity. You can always trade them no matter what. Whether someone, like for example, if there's a real estate asset, today if I want to sell a property that they own, I would have to wait for someone to actually buy it from me. And it's not super liquid because I can't just wake up in the morning and just sell it. I have to find a buyer. But if this was somehow in crypto and it's tokenized, then in theory, I would just sell because there's a liquidity pool. There's always funds available. So I sell, I get the money. At some point, someone buys, they pay the money to the pool, and they take the asset. So there's a lot of things you could do with it. And that's where a lot of its power comes from. But in the underlying core concept is just a decentralized database.
And was there a particular chain you first started building on? Is it the same one you're building on now?
ETH and Solana were the main chains that we're just prototyping building on. ETH just because our customers were on ETH and we just built for them. Solana just because I was curious and wanted to know what it was all about. So I built stuff on there. But probably going forward, if we were to work with banks or governments, definitely I would prefer something more like Hedera, where it's public, but it's permissioned because a bunch of different companies are the companies that are involved in the consensus mechanism. So these companies effectively vote on new blocks being added to the chain. But like Hedera is not actually blockchain, but that's besides the point. So this is probably the way to go for the foreseeable future, just because banks are very worried about public and permissionless chains where anyone, like Ethereum, anyone can set up a node and I guess be part of the staking process, but it's not. Banks are just not happy with that because that leads to a lot of risk. Maybe you're helping money launderers set up maybe money launderers can just set up a node and do things, so they wouldn't want that. But, sorry, that was a long answer to
No,
your
no,
question.
it's good. It's interesting to see the kind of progression of which chains people build on over time as things get more interesting and exciting.
Base and Solana are the way to go. Base
Yeah.
for EVM, Solana for non-EVM and high meme volume. So there's people there already. So those are the two main things to go for, unless there's a very particular use case.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd love to go into what are you building, like Rap Carbon Initiative, if you could just share your story around that.
So I'll probably give some context to this just because it won't make sense.
Okay.
We started off as just a smart contract building company, just because there's Web3 companies that exist and they're always looking for devs. And we're devs, so it's like good business. And also we were students. And so it's like, oh, I guess something for money on the side. Why not? So that's how it started off. It was kind of more of a joke than it was anything real. But things became very real when these companies in Web3, they're like, hey, so we have all this cash, we have all these communities, and they're typically ICO'd, so they have a publicly traded token. And we just want to add more value to the people in our community. So can you build stuff for us that we can give to our communities? Maybe we can give it to our partners. And we're like, yeah, sure. So
Build what exactly? Like,
so anything, what they asked for was something just vague, and it was kind of really up to us to build, just because they didn't know what they really wanted. For them, it was just like more of a marketing thing than it was actually something useful. So what we ended up actually doing was tokenizing carbon credits. And this is very early on when we didn't actually know what the implications of this would be, but we're like, okay, effectively you buy a bunch of carbon credits in the real world, represent them in digital tokens, and then you sell them out to your communities. Why not? So we started building these different tools that allow for companies to tokenize any asset, whether it's like network relays, whether it's like sustainability assets. It could be any asset, but all it is just like infrastructure, just so anyone can tokenize. They can sell it to the communities. They can create a reward system where someone would buy it, but then they would stake it and basically promising they won't sell it. And in return, they get a reward in the form of an APY. So just creating infrastructure like this that allows for people to buy, sell these assets we were building. And over time, we realized, okay, we can actually use this infrastructure for more than just selling to crypto companies. Why don't we use this for something that's bigger? And immediately we started thinking about green bonds. And the problem with green bonds was you don't really know where the money is going. There's like this whole thing with transparency. There's all these problems with like companies greenwashing by funding green, like paying for buying green bonds. And so we're like, okay, maybe we could do something there. And that's when this whole push towards, okay, sustainability assets would be great. So now what we're actually trying to do is we're trying to build asset level tokenization infrastructure so we can tokenize assets with their actual cash flows going on and off chain, and then all their data and attributes going on chain. So you can continue just creating tokens and selling them out, or this can help asset managers when they want to create new funds for particular assets. They can use this and create a fund out of it. That's one direction. Or we can help governments finance for any infrastructure project by helping them tokenize the asset that they're trying to build or create. So there's different ways of using it. And so, but what we're doing is we're building this asset level tokenization infrastructure. What other things can they build so that their token has more value? And that's effectively the question. So if we can build something for which their community can use that token to buy these assets, then that's good for them. So the problem we were solving for them is just bringing more value to the underlying token. So for them, it was just if they have like hardware, we can tokenize their hardware and say, hey, you can use your token to buy this hardware. The community members can use the token to buy this hardware, and it's out there for the public. So that's the problem we're solving in the Web3. Now with Web2, like banks, governments, or just companies, we are still looking for partners to kind of implement solutions in this space. And we still haven't found the right partner, the right type of customer to work with yet. So, but the direction we could go in is we can tokenize forests to help track supply chains. in places where regulation is not tough, like many places in Africa and Brazil. That would be pretty useful. That's one option. Another option was tokenizing EV chargers as a new asset and making it available for people to buy. That's another direction. So there's lots of different directions, but the problem that we were having in the Web2 space is we don't have the particular expertise in very specific verticals. Like EV chargers, I know about it from a conceptual level. I know about it now that because I read a lot about it, but outside of that, I'm not involved. I don't know. I wouldn't be able to list the 10 top companies that are involved in the space. Same with like asset managers. I wouldn't be able to tell you how exactly a fund is created, what are the mechanics or the key stakeholders. So we're still trying to figure out if like who we can partner with in the real world.
Yeah.
Because we understand technology and we're trying to work with these commercial partners so that can understand a particular area, and we work as the technology partner in implementing something that suits their needs. So this is still a work in progress.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. And do you have anything to?
I don't think so. It's just very interesting, all the different approaches you could take to tokenizing it. I think it's tough going from Web3 back to Web2 and like sort of educating them slightly on the technology. So hats off to you for
Thank
that.
you. Thank you. We're trying very hard. But there's another new because this is actually quite risky. Like we have business in Web3. The hesitation I have for staying in the space is right now people have money because it's a bull run, but you don't know when people will stop having money, or companies, Web3 companies will stop having money. And maybe we can start working with the chains themselves, like Ethereum Foundation, and they're a foundation, or like maybe their subsidiaries or their partners to provide them value. That's one way because they will always have money. But that's still a risky game, just being in crypto itself. And so I was like, okay, maybe we should apply this in Web2 because there's a lot of use cases out there. So still exploring, but this is like a very, very risky thing. So our plan now is trying to still work with L1s or L2s and maybe apply for grants because our infrastructure is still infrastructure. It's super helpful. If it doesn't help Web2 companies today, it will still certainly help Web3 companies. There's a lot of people doing tokenized real estate, for example. And a core fundamental problem any single tokenization company will always have is moving money from Web 2 to Web 3, from Web 3 to Web 2. That will always happen. For some reason, no one's thinking about that. And that's something that we're actively like building and prototyping. Like, for example, real estate. I mentioned earlier the benefits of tokenized real estate. But then if I'm a tenant in the house and I want to pay rent, I don't want to go to like Coinbase, buy crypto, and then send crypto. I just want to do my bank transfer like I always do. So if I do this, I just want to do a bank transfer, and somehow this funds, my rent has to be converted to crypto so it can pay the owners of the house in crypto because it's a tokenized asset. This way you can track the cash flow. So maybe every month there's $5,000 coming in as cash flow from rent, but then maybe there's like $200, $300 of expenses for cleaning services and maybe $2,000 for rent. And so like if you want to track all of these cash flows on chain, because that is what's right when you're tokenizing the asset. But this sort of like cash flow level, asset level tokenization doesn't actually exist. Solutions for that. So we're trying to build that and maybe apply for grants to fund this while we support Web3 customers in the meantime. But yeah, it's a lot of exploratory. It's so new to the game. I just graduated 2 months ago. So I'm excited to explore.
Hey guys, a quick break from the podcast because I have something super exciting to share with you. Are you ready to scale your startup? Let's be real. Scaling a startup is no small feat, especially without the right network or investment support. That's why I'm so excited to introduce today's sponsor, BlockDojo, a global venture builder for founders in blockchain and AI. If you're ready to scale, BlockDojo's 12-week venture builder program is the game changer you need. They provide initial funding in exchange for equity, along with access to top-tier designers, developers, financial experts, and world-class mentors. Last year, startups in BlockDojo's program secured over $12 million in additional funding from leading venture firms like Techstars, Octopus Ventures, and Index Ventures.
Apply now for the London cohort to accelerate your startup success. A link to fast track your application is in the description below. Application closed on December 1st. Good luck, and let's get back into the podcast.
Still early stages. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, but I've got faith in you and what you're building. So yeah, fantastic, Sree. We're going to go on to a little bit of a quiz. I didn't tell you about it, but it's a blockchain themed quiz. I hope you're ready.
Okay, let's go for it.
Yeah, let's go for it. So I don't know if you want to take it away.
Yeah.
Cait?
So, what year was Bitcoin, the first blockchain-based cryptocurrency, launched? Was it A, 2005, B, 2009, or C, 2012?
That's such a hard question. Can I phone the audience? I'm just kidding. It's 2009.
2009.
Yes.
Well done. Amazing.
Nice job. What is the maximum supply of Bitcoin? Is it A, 21 million, B, 50 million, or C, unlimited?
It should be unlimited, right? Because why not? That'd be pretty nice. I'm just kidding. It's 21 million.
Yeah, and could you deep dive? What does that? Why is it 21 million? It was
Satoshi wanted that.
It was part of the white paper.
Yeah.
really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me more.
It's literally written in. It's literally written in code that you could even check on GitHub today.
Mm.
It literally says it's a hard coded number, which is 21 million tokens or bitcoins that will ever exist, and that's it. And he just decided that number. Not exactly sure why, but it's there. A maximum cap, benefits the currency because it forces it to be deflationary.
Right.
There's only a very limited supply. So as there's more tokens being, sorry, I keep saying tokens, but it's the same thing, currency, Bitcoin. As more Bitcoin is released to the public from mining process, there's less Bitcoin left. So this means the tokens that are in circulation today are going to be worth more in the future because the supply is going to slowly run out. So each Bitcoin is going to be worth more. So you're deflating. It's a deflationary value for the currency because all the prices are going up.
It's a
Fantastic.
handsome price right now.
Is it?
Yeah. I think yesterday was at 80,000.
No, 88. Yeah, it hit an all-time high of 93K.
Wow.
2 days
It's
ago.
high.
I've been watching it at least 10
Just
times,
going
20
up.
times a day. So it's pretty. I get a notification every time it moves up or down by 10, a couple percent. So it's going up. It's like Trump won and he's pro crypto, and so now everyone's expecting Bitcoin to be added to state reserves, corporate reserves. The Treasury just putting money in Bitcoin rather than gold or any other assets. And so price is going up because people speculate that there's just higher demand. And so it's going up, but then I'm very, very certain it's going to crash at some point.
It might crash around January with the inauguration, but then perhaps it will go back up again, just stabilizing the market.
Stabilizing. And I'm curious, this might be a silly question, but how much Bitcoin's left to give out? Do you guys know?
That's a very good question. I think it's at 18 million right now, 19 million.
So
I don't exactly know the number, but it's it's a quick Google search away. Oh, I don't have data, so I can't. But yeah, it's a quick Google search. There's circulating supply of Bitcoin. So 21 million minus circulating supply of Bitcoin is however much that's left to be given out.
Fantastic.
2.1 million.
Ooh,
You were close.
2.1. Wow. So not much left at all.
Yeah.
And it's been, how long has it, when did it start first being distributed? 2009?
I think he was writing it. He released the paper in 2009, but I think it started in 2010 is when it's actually, people can mine and do things, 2011. It's between 2009 and 2011. I don't know the exact date. But,
Wow.
yeah.
So not much left.
People are doing it. Imagine back in the day when you're mining Bitcoin.
Must have been such a high.
Yeah. Those guys with a couple hundred Bitcoin in their wallet somewhere. Maybe it's an opportunity. Someone out there.
Do you know what? That's what I was thinking. Because isn't there like a banking system, but for Bitcoin, that, we store our money in banks and we don't really think about words?
That's like Coinbase. But
yeah.
Coinbase, that's what all the exchanges try to do. But the thing is, they can go bust at any point. You don't really know.
Right.
Because people thought FTX was a great exchange. It went bust. I trust Coinbase a bit, but I don't entirely trust it.
I trust about
they
a
have FCA regulation through, I think, RChat, but
crazy. That's good.
so you are protected, but at the same time, it's such a up and down market. It could just go. My friend, he has the worst thought in his head is that his was stolen. So he won't tell us how much it was, but
Really?
a few years ago his wallet was emptied.
Oh,
and
no.
yeah, it was a lot of money. So his is the opposite thought. His is, God, I lost all that money and look at where it is today. So I
Dang.
think that one's worse.
And is there no one he can go to?
No,
There's nowhere to recover it.
That's the whole point. It's decentralized.
It's
There's no
right.
authority.
Which is the good thing, but the bad thing.
Yeah, catch-22.
It's living on the edge with blockchain. Like, wow. And the next question is, for the quiz, is what famous cryptocurrency founder is still anonymous? Do you need the...
No, Satoshi Nakamoto.
Woo! That is correct. And yeah, Cait was really telling me an interesting story about him. So I wondered if you wanted to share.
There was obviously the High Court case that happened in May last year, and HBO are now doing a documentary on it. I don't know how much I can share on that.
Oh, fairs, okay.
But yeah.
Wait, is this the one that was already announced? Or they thought some guy was Satoshi?
Yes, yeah, that's the one they're doing it on. So yeah, the High Court case where the UK courts, it actually came into the UK High Courts. They said that was not Satoshi, and so now HBO are doing a huge documentary on it. I think it actually is out now, or it's soon to come out.
I thought it was already out, and the guy said, "Oh, I'm not Satoshi." I was like, "Okay, is that where the conversation ends?" It's like they do all his work. It's like you're Satoshi, and then he's like, "No, I'm not."
It's not me, yeah. So yeah, still anonymous. We still don't know who it is.
So I thought he was the one claiming he was. He wasn't.
He wasn't. No, he wasn't at all.
So people said he's it.
So there was a real kind of 50-50 in the community. Like there was people that were. It was kind of mainly people that were building on the blockchain themselves, were big kind of Web3 natives, were like, you are not Satoshi at all. Like, this is bizarre behavior. Why would you claim that? But yeah, the other half were kind of buying into it. They were like, yeah, okay, we've got this, yeah.
And I'm just curious, why would you want to be Satoshi? So you're saying he didn't ever claim it, so I don't know why it went to court. I'm confused about that.
So because the Bitcoin is in his wallet, so if when we were saying earlier about the keys, if you can have it proved that you own those wallets, I guess there's some legal framework or loophole that would then allow you to access the money in there. And I can't remember the actual amount in there. It's a lot of money.
I think he owned 1 million Bitcoin or something like that. And a lot of it's still unclaimed. It's just sitting there on a wallet, and he hasn't cashed it out.
And he was quite active in the community, was replying a lot to people in threads of things, and then just one day just went silent. So there's so much conspiracy around whether he's still alive, whether maybe he was really old and has gone into a home, or some more nefarious conspiracies.
What if it's the government and they created this whole thing?
It's a real rabbit hole, honestly. So if you ever need something to kind of dig your teeth into.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. The problem with him having that 1 million Bitcoin is a single Bitcoin today is like $88,000. So 1 million Bitcoin is like billions of dollars. And all of that can just go bust in a second if he sells it somehow. Maybe moves it to 5 different exchanges and 10 different exchanges and sell. And the price is going to tank. And so that's a big risk to anyone that holds Bitcoin. Technically, here's the funny part. The whole purpose of crypto was you want it to be without control. You want it to be decentralized. Everyone has their own power. But then if a single person, this Satoshi Nakamoto, if he comes out and sells his 1 million Bitcoin, everyone's prices goes bust. It's gonna collapse. So technically, is it really decentralized? Is it really self-empowering? It may not. He's still trusting some entity, in this case, an unknown person named Satoshi. So now the question is it worth trusting Satoshi Nakamoto and buying Bitcoin, or is it worth trusting a central bank and buying USD?
It's very similar to just the kind of fiat asset market in that if someone decided one day, and they did this all the time, it was in the whole thing with the GameStop shares. If they decide to undercut the market and sell all their shares, and then it just all plummets. So it's kind of, whilst it is meant to be a new system, it does very much mirror the traditional financial system, which is always very interesting.
Yeah, and when this just came to mind, I know when you said it could be the government, it does sound like a very government thing to do. I know that sounds really but
there you go. Get on those boards. Get on the conspiracy boards.
But I'm just wondering, it's completely decentralized and therefore no one's meant to own it. How has that happened? you know, like, why is the UK, US not meddling in this? Like, why is there no government that can take control of this?
It's the setup of how it's built, right? So it's like, essentially you have the miners that are all saying this is true. You can't really have a bad actor coming in because its majority say this is correct, so it's correct. There have been cases where bad actors have teamed up and they've got 51% of them have said the wrong thing is true, and then that chain is, you know, that's kind of invalid and you can't continue building on that. But I'm kind of butchering the explanation of it. But yeah, essentially, because you'd have to have so many working together to manipulate it, it would be more effort than it's probably worth for them to do it.
Wow, fair enough.
But technically, like China can do it because Bitcoin mining is effectively what controls. The miners control the Bitcoin. So if 51% of miners say something, it's going to be added to the chain. So 51% of miners are compromised somehow, then the whole thing can go bust. But I think China itself holds more than 51% of all the Bitcoin miners. Or
Does it?
Yeah, because it's cheap electricity. So there's a lot of people mining there, and there's these things called mining pools where I have a system, you have a system, but rather than you and I competing with one another, what if we collaborate? So if you get some Bitcoin, you share with me. If I get some Bitcoin, I share with you as a reward. So now let's put our resources together. Rather than you and I doing the same calculation, I do some of the calculation, you do some other part of the calculation, and check the hashes. And if either one of us wins, we both win. So there's these pools that are created, and the largest pool I think is in China because of cheap electricity. And so tomorrow, let's say the Chinese government wanted to say, I want to crack down on Bitcoin. They've somehow find who the miners are, go and blow them up. Boom, there goes Bitcoin.
That's it. So then, in a way, could you argue that China has a lot of control in Bitcoin?
They do have a lot of control in Bitcoin, yeah. And like Brazil has a very high control in Bitcoin too, because I think electricity there is also cheap. Or somewhere in South America, I forget the exact location. But Germany, I think, also has, I might be wrong about that. I don't know. But there's basically countries wherever electricity is super cheap.
That can,
They have a very strong advantage when it comes to Bitcoin.
Yeah, because it's very electricity intensive to be doing the mining.
Yes. Great. Are you two miners?
I do not have the skills for that.
It's too expensive to mine now.
Yeah.
Especially in the UK.
And final question is, which blockchain network introduced smart contracts? Is it Ethereum, Bitcoin, or Dogecoin?
Ethereum.
Yes. Well done.
Thank you.
Well done, Sree. So that was what? 4 for 4?
Yeah.
Thanks for the interview. So do I get the job?
Yeah. But yeah, so the next section is going to be opportunity in blockchain. So we want to give listeners an insight about what could be the next opportunities in blockchain, and would love to have a discussion with you two around that. So yeah, I think Cait, you're gonna lead this one. So yeah.
Yeah. So obviously a lot of chains are keen for people to continue building on them. And I know that Solana, Polygon, Polkadot, all of them kind of support builders building in there. Do you work with a particular chain? Have you received any?
I really want to.
Is there one in particular?
Polkadot, just because they're somehow very well tied with UCL, and so that would be pretty neat. I want to go to their PBA program. It's Polkadot Blockchain Academy. I think it's like a 2-week or 4-week program where you're there. They bring you to the US somewhere, and then you're just learning, like deep diving into the Polkadot ecosystem, and that'd be like really cool to do and build things on Polkadot because it's a layer 0, because you can build new chains on top of Polkadot, and so with a certain like privacy security guarantees based on what your needs are. So that would be really cool. That's something I actually want to do in the near future. But yeah, that's pretty much the only one. Maybe Solana, I'm not entirely sure.
I'm putting the seeds out there.
Yeah, I mean, that's a point of the whole blockchain thing, right? Because everyone's building an L1, and that is the greatest asset. For the end consumer, the prices for everything goes down because there's so much competition. But now the question is, how can you make a really good business out of this? And that's why everyone's building L1, because no matter what happens, L1s are L1s. They're the main block. Like, when I say L1, I mean like Ethereum. Bitcoin is also an L1. Solana is an L1. Sui is an L1. It's created by one of the UCL professors. These are all L1s. And if you're building on top, no matter what's built on top, the L1s will always win. So that's why there's a large push to people building L1s. But for the end consumer, that's the biggest asset. They can go and do something on one L1. If they don't like it, they can go and do another L1. So yeah, like, of course I'm going to have my fingers in everything. That's the whole point.
Amazing.
And yeah, I wanted to touch on, did you say you could get money from particular
L1s?
Particular L1s if you do use their...
Exactly.
Yeah, and I just wondered if you could explain that opportunity.
So grants are a very big thing within the crypto space. So I was just talking about the L1s and I guess a business model around L1s. L1s can win no matter what, just if people use it. So their core like life or death kind of question is, are people using my L1? And so that's the only thing they care about. That means they need to incentivize people to come in and build on their L1. And Ethereum, since it's the oldest, it just has a lot of reputation, so people build there anyway. But the issue is high gas fees. So then Solana comes out and says, I could do things better, and then like join my network. People would be interested in doing that, except Solana is not EVM compatible, meaning you can't use Solidity to write smart contracts there. You have to use Rust. And it's not the same. Rust is a bit more lower level. It's a bit more harder to write, and people just don't know how to do it. So every L1 has its own little kind of niche or its main benefit. So they have to incentivize people to come and join them. And so grants are their way of doing that. Every L1 has a foundation, Sree Foundation, Hedera Foundation, Ethereum Foundation, Solana Foundation. And so these foundations' core job is how can we get the next billion people into crypto, but then on my chain. For people to come into crypto, they have to have some services. So then they're like, okay, yeah, we want developers. I'm going to pay, a $10,000 grant, $50,000 grant, $100,000 grant if you come and build on my chain. So that's essentially the main incentive for them to provide these grants. And most L1s do provide them because they raise a ton of money.
Yeah.
And they also run a lot of incubator programs as well.
That's also true.
Yeah, Stellar, they run, I think, multiple kind of couple of day ones, and then there's bigger, longer ones. Solana has their hub as well. So yeah, if you're interested in getting into blockchain, you can go down the grant route if you've already started coding, or you can, they do hackathons as well. So yeah, there's
a lot of
money
money
to
there.
get into it. Yeah.
And crypto hackathons are like a hidden gem that I don't think people actually understand. So crypto hackathons, in practice, they're the same as any other hackathon, but the biggest benefit of a crypto hackathon is the prizes are just crazy high.
Yeah, hundreds of thousands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can do that.
Yeah.
It's like if someone's out there and they want to get into blockchain, like why take the hard route of building something and trying to commercialize it when just go to a hackathon, just tinker, have fun, build something you think is super useful. And then if try to win the hackathon, you'll make enough money to firstly sustain yourself and to make into a business. And then also, two is you'll also find other people that have the same kind of thinking, because it takes a lot to be a blockchain hackathoner, because it's not something as simple as using MongoDB and building something. It's not like build anything. It's like use our particular chain to build some product. And so that a lot of people that join the hackathons are also kind of new. So if you go there, you're very likely to find someone else out there that have the same kind of ambition, because very often they are also new. Otherwise, they wouldn't be at a hackathon.
Yeah.
So you'll find really good people around the same kind of caliber. If you find someone even more experienced, it's even great. You can get feedback and advice while you're there building something, which is incredible. So hackathons, grants are a very, very good way to get started.
So you've kind of mentioned the grants, and we spoke about hackathons and the ways you can get into it. But in terms of people that are looking to build a business in the Web3 space in blockchain, is there any advice that you would give them as a kind of first-time founder?
I would highly recommend looking into DeFi first rather than anything else. This is advice probably I should have given myself many months ago, but I didn't. So I've been thinking about this quite a bit recently as we're trying to figure out Web3, Web2, all that. If you're thinking about a business, you want to put something out there, you probably want to figure out what's the lowest barrier to entry, so you can test something in 4 weeks. If it doesn't work, you move on. So for you to test something in 4 weeks, doing something where applying blockchain in the real world is a terrible idea. unless you have a lot of industry experience within that particular use case. And then you know exactly where things fit. If you know exactly what to do it. Otherwise, definitely don't. The best way for a new blockchain or crypto founder to get into the space is to build utilities within crypto for crypto people. Like Pump.Fun is a great example. They're a company that was funded by a VC called Alliance. And Pump.Fun effectively is a platform that allows anyone to launch tokens on Solana without writing any code. And this one company makes like millions, hundreds of millions of dollars a day or something. It's like or a week or something like that. I forget. But they make an insane amount of money just because like over 50% of Solana volume just comes from Pump.Fun tokens. So it's loads of money. And like that's a pretty good problem to solve just because people always want to launch tokens. And it's like a very simple way to get in and build stuff. And you can kind of apply that differently. I'm sure if Pump.Fun wanted to create an NFT tokenization thing today, they probably can because they have the kind of money. They have people that are interested in launching tokens and doing things. Pump.Fun does a lot of meme coin launches, but if they wanted to, they can kind of have another platform for utility tokens and then do that. So there's so many ways you can grow once you have some long established like name out there in the Web3 space. That would be like the simplest way to get started quickly, figure out, like understand lending protocols and see maybe there's any opportunities around that, or understand there's newly this concept of I'm not sure what it's called. Maybe aggregation is maybe the best way. Like right now, we've been talking about tokenization and how it's super big. There's a lot of crypto companies that are doing tokenization. One key problem is if I want to buy tokenized real estate, I have to go to one person. If I want to buy tokenized solar panels, I have to go to a different person. If I want to buy tokenized something else, I have to go like maybe olive oil. I have to go to a different person. I don't want to do that as a consumer. I don't care about going to different platforms. I just care about making money. So an aggregated platform for this maybe would be a good solution. That's something that we're looking at, but really realistically probably won't go in that direction because it has its own hurdles. But there's opportunities like this where you just kind of understand really well the space. That's probably the best way to get involved. Just definitely do just something DeFi first. Understand what people want. Only once you hate the people in it, then move out. Because that will happen at some point.
That's good advice for anything, isn't it?
Until you can't stand it.
Exactly. All right. So the penultimate section is the reality of blockchain. So the tea, we're here to spill the tea. So we just want to get to know you a bit more about your venture and just any lessons you've learned. So the first question is, what's the least favorite part about being a founder? What's your least favorite part?
People within crypto are just super greedy. And there's a lot of market forces that are, this might be the very dull part of the podcast, but it's like, it's a truth. It's people are the whole thing with crypto is like everyone owns their own funds. Everyone owns their own thing. They have a stake in everything. A side effect of that is there's a lot of people that are out there who are traders and their whole aim coming into crypto is how can I maximize the amount of money I can make?
Yeah.
When you have sufficient of those players, if you're someone like me who wants to build something useful, that would just get on your nerves. Like that's a nasty part of crypto. For example, today, if someone really wanted to make a lot of money, slightly illegally, what they would have to do is they would launch a token, get a bunch of influencers to share about this token, and then like get lots of people to come and buy their token and pump up the price, dump it, move on. This is illegal, so definitely don't do that. But like if you want to make money, you can do that. And there's a lot of people that do that in areas where the regulations just aren't tough. If I'm in the Philippines, I get a VPN maybe to somewhere in Africa and then launch a token, do all this stuff, leave, go to a Filipino exchange, sell my crypto, even before someone reports it. Like, what's going to happen? A lot of these exchanges, some of them don't actually KYC. So if you take your money out, then it's gone. Or like if you exchange hop where you put money in one exchange, you take it out, you put money in a different exchange, you take it out. because you can't trace. You can only track money flows if it's purely on chain. But then if you go into an exchange and come out, there's a lot of other people that go into exchange and comes out, so you don't really know whose money is what. So you could really do a lot of money laundering stuff, and people do that. So that really drains the interest out of this. If you know all the truth around why things work the way they do, it's just because a lot of people out there are super greedy. They only care about the money, and it's just a bad atmosphere to be in. Everyone's like, the very common crypto word is like, when pump.
What does that mean?
It's
Wet pump.
When pump.
A when pump.
It's basically saying it's like, when are we going to pump this token, and when are we going to pump the price?
That sounds so.
That's like the most common thing you'll find in any crypto community. It's like when pump. If they have a token, that's like one of the most common thing. That's just because like I put some money in, I want it to go up. So when is that happening, guys? What are we doing? And so it's just like a really bad place to be in for that. And it's just like that's the kind of thing that when I say when you hate the people, when you move out, like you have to see all this and experience it, and then you'll be like, yeah, the money's not worth it. So yeah.
Yeah. And what is one of the best stories about the impact you feel you're making with Wrapped Carbon Initiative?
Applying blockchain in very clever ways that people haven't thought about before. That's probably the best, amazing part. There's a lot of like crypto people that look at what we're doing and they're like, huh, this is actually quite clever, because we kind of take advantage of the fact we know what crypto people want. We know what real world businesses want, because I've only very recently become a blockchain founder. But before this, I was more of a tech. I guess I'm definitely a tech founder, but in the realm of like AI, in the realm of like algorithmic stuff. So this is the first time I'm in blockchain. So I kind of understand how businesses think outside of crypto. So there's a really clever way you can play with the tokenomics and create tokens and launch them. I don't mean ICOs, but I mean like NFTs. Launch them in a certain way that people would be interested in buying them and trading them in a way that actually benefits the planet, has real value in the world. So there's really clever ways we can do that. And when we do that, we get to like showcase this to the world in clever ways. This whole thing of tracking supply chain with blockchain has been a thing since 2016. Like the moment the idea of smart contracts was released, that's when everyone's like, oh, wow, like you can actually track supply chains with this. It's one of the oldest concepts. But with this whole idea of, we could tokenize forests, we can tokenize timber, we can tokenize like as we go downstream. The fundamental point of that is actually not to track supply chains, but it's to tokenize assets to incentivize people to join. And tracking the supply chain is a beneficial byproduct. So you can use blockchain in very clever ways. And when you do it, you can actually like unlock a lot of key benefits that you can't do with Web 2. And that's like the best part of working in this space, because like you'll have one of these epiphanies every now and then. And then you're like, wow, this is actually worth working on. This is pretty neat. And so that's definitely the probably most memorable. It's not any particular moment, but it's just like when you realize these kind of fundamental concepts, is probably one of the most rewarding moments.
I know, Cait, if you had a question on...
So this is... when I asked this, so I wanted to just caveat it. So at London Blockchain Conference this year, we met someone that was tokenizing water. Is there any other natural resources outside of forests that you would look to tokenize in the future, or you think could be tokenized?
All sustainability assets. That'd be really cool. Like any of them. There's benefits to doing everything. Sand is one thing that people don't really think about.
Sand?
Yeah. So sand, a lot of it is illegally brought. When I say illegally, so there's different types of sand. So if you just take a ton of sand from the Sahara Desert and trying to use it to build houses, it probably won't work. Sand effectively has like different kinds of minerals, or it could be sand that was made, like sand on the shore of a seabed is very different from sand like inland. So there's different properties, and it's very easy to kind of like mix sand together in illegal ways, or like illegally just like steal sand from different areas and put it into construction, for example. And there's a lot of like lack of transparency and traceability in that area. So tokenizing sand would be something as big as like tokenizing water. Because like sand is probably the most used commodity on this planet. probably even more than water, I would argue, in some cases. Because like water people drink and use for different things. Yeah, but sand is everywhere. Like you use sand to like make this table. 'Cause you have to
Okay, so,
actually sand
yeah,
it, right? To build this house or building, you'd have to use sand, so much of it. So I think it is the most traded or used commodity in the world, and it's super unregulated. And it's something that I looked at initially, but then I just didn't have enough experience or understanding about sand to do anything about it. But yeah, you could tokenize any sort of sustainability asset, and it has its value as long as you just know how it fits in with the real world. Because effectively, tokenization is just digitally representing an asset or digitally representing a certain property of the asset. And that's just like putting it on the database. So anything you could do in Web 2, you could do in Web 3. But then the key benefit is you can incentivize people to do different things.
Yeah.
And so anything could really be tokenized and used cleverly.
Yeah. And my final question for you is that for aspiring entrepreneurs listening on the podcast or other early stage founders, what's one thing you would like to let them know? Anything you want.
One thing. Pick a great team and have fun. That's probably the best thing. Because like there's so many ups and downs. I've been doing this for 8 years and I sometimes feel like, oh, like I've seen everything. There's no way like I'm gonna deal with something that I've never seen before. But then it happens like the very next day. And there's never a time you'll have experienced everything. So there'll always be a ton of like downsides. There'll be a ton of upsides. But the most important thing is to just like find a great team and have fun, because it will become dull. And if you don't have a good team in the dull moments, you'll just like give up.
Yeah.
But then if you're not having fun, obviously you'll give up. So it has to be both. And that's probably like the two key important things. Just build what you know. I made the mistake of like, when we first did this tokenized forestry concept, we wanted to drive this ourselves. So I was out there trying to understand about forestry. I read so much about it. I learned so much about it now, but it's just still not enough. It's probably like 1 month of knowledge of someone that actually works in forestry. It's like I should have just hired someone who's been in this space for a while and made it work. So like it's very easy to just say, okay, I have this concept. Blockchain for supply chain is a very big thing. Let me build it. Then let's just try to go and find customers. That's great, but if I don't know enough about supply chain, there's just no way I'll be able to build something that's useful. So maybe be ambitious with where you can end up going. But in the beginning, start very simple, very basic, just with what you know. So just have fun, tinker, build, and then keep it growing rather than jumping to something that's like really big and complex at first go.
That's brilliant. So work with great people, build what you know, and have fun.
Yeah.
That's perfect. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Sree.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I think that's a wrap.
Thank you.